Page 6 mattered. It said the marriage between Kang Sung-ho and Zara Adami ended in exactly 6 months. No penalty, no shared assets, no further obligation. Sung-ho had read that page more than any document in his life. The night before the wedding, the morning of. Now, 6 months later, he was about to tear it in half. Hands weren't steady. 3 hours earlier, Zara stood in the hallway with a suitcase by her feet. She told herself packing was practical. She didn't believe it. She'd spent an hour folding clothes she wasn't taking. Down the hall, Sung-ho's voice murmured through the office door, routine business now, the crisis long past. She thought about the video call that started it. How certain she'd been that 6 months would be small enough to walk away from clean. She'd been wrong about one thing, the one thing she never put in writing. At 9 o'clock, 3 hours before the contract expired, Sung-ho opened the drawer. He knew exactly which page mattered. Sung-ho inherited the Kang Group at 31 when his father's heart gave out. He hadn't wanted it. He'd spent his 20s building a life away from it, London, then 3 years at a rival firm, just to prove he didn't need the name. But when his father died, there was no one else. His sister had married out. His brother could spend money, not make it. So Sung-ho came home, put on his father's watch, and spent 6 years learning that inheriting a company and understanding one are not the same thing. Then one year, everything broke at once. A root dispute cost 2 major contracts. A warehouse fire in Busan, ruled accidental, never fully explained, wiped out $11 million in inventory insurance barely touched. And inside the company's own boardroom, a hostile bid started assembling in the shadows. Cousin Do-yeon, the CFO, the man who'd smiled at every board meeting for 6 years, had been waiting for exactly this kind of year. By month 4, 3 banks had cut off credit. By month 5, Do-yeon was quietly meeting board members, framing it as concern. He never said Sung-ho should step down. He funded an independent review instead. His name was never on it. One Tuesday in December, the board gave Sung-ho 10 weeks. Raise enough capital to stabilize the company, or watch Do-yeon take it. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in his father's old chair, looked at a photo of his grandfather's first cargo ship, 1962, the whole fleet, and thought about losing 62 years in 10 weeks. At 4 in the morning, his lawyer Min-jae sent one message. A company in New York might help. Adami Maritime. Capital, but no foothold in Asian shipping lanes, exactly what the Kang Group still had. Sung-ho agreed to the call. He didn't know it would rebuild his entire life around a woman he hadn't met yet. Zara Adami never walked into a negotiation unprepared. She'd learned early, youngest in the room, only woman, often the only black executive. Preparation wasn't an advantage, it was armor. Father built Adami Maritime from a fax machine in Newark into a floor of Manhattan real estate. Zara grew up in boardrooms instead of playgrounds. Business school, top of her class, offers from bigger firms, she turned them down to build on what her father started. By 32, she was VP of International Partnerships. Men assumed she was someone's assistant. She let them. Then she'd produce a term sheet better than anything they walked in expecting. Her mother died when Zara was 19. Zara buried the grief in work, the same way her father had buried his own losses. It made her sharper. It also made her afraid of anything she couldn't out-negotiate. At 28, she flew to Rotterdam alone to face down a partner trying to gut a contract midterm. She bluffed, claimed a replacement partner that didn't exist. They caved. Her father laughed harder than she'd seen in years. Wasn't looking for a husband. She'd ended one engagement herself, clean terms, no ambiguity, after watching a man try to manage her career around his. So when her father brought her the Kang Group's crisis, her first instinct was pure strategy. She read 6 years of filings in one night. By midnight, she had a model. The real numbers, once due diligence started, were worse than public filings showed. "They're 6 weeks from a board coup," her father said. "I don't like putting capital into a company mid-collapse." "What if the capital comes with control?" Zara said. walked him through everything her father's team missed. The fire's insurance shortfall buried across 3/4 to dodge a loan covenant. The board members quietly loyal to Do-Yun. The shipping gaps that lined up almost perfectly with the Kang Group's spare capacity. What kind of control are you thinking? A capital infusion alone wouldn't hold. It would just stabilize things long enough for Do-Yun to consolidate power once the danger passed. A binding structural alliance, she said. Something a board vote can't undo in 6 months. You're talking about a merger clause tied to family structure. I'm talking about marriage. Her father's eyebrows lifted. And who exactly did you have in mind to be the bride? Zara held his gaze. Me. Sung-ho heard the terms on a 2 a.m. video call. Elijah Adami, Minjai, and a woman labeled only Zia-Dami. He assumed family alliance meant a dinner, a photo op. It took a minute to realize Elijah meant it literally. My daughter proposed the structure, Elijah said. Zara didn't flinch. Laid it out clean. 6 months, publicly real, a prenup protecting both sides, a no-fault dissolution clause at the end. You understand what you're proposing, Sung-ho said, the first thing he'd said to her directly. I understand it precisely. I wrote it. Marriage isn't usually a line item in a term sheet. Neither is losing 62 years to a hostile cousin in 10 weeks. But here we are. He hadn't expected the directness. He respected it more than he resented it. Elijah closed the call with a warning. Treat her as less than an equal partner, and the whole deal dies before the ink dries. Sung-ho said he understood. He meant it more than he expected to. 11 days of negotiation. Lawyers handled most of it. When Sung-ho and Zara did talk, it was terms until day 9, when he finally asked. Why are you doing this? Your father would have found another structure. A long pause. Because I've spent my whole career being underestimated in rooms my father built for me, Zara said. And I'm tired of watching men lose companies their families spent 60 years building because they didn't have the leverage to protect themselves from the people closest to them. I don't need it to be romantic to know it's worth doing. He didn't have an answer. He wasn't sure he wanted one. His mother's reaction was worse than he expected, not about the marriage being fake, about what the bride looked like. Sung-ho told her the company wouldn't survive without it, and he'd rather survive with people talking than fail quietly with everyone's approval. She didn't attend the wedding preparations. That was its own answer. Zara got ready with her lawyer Priya beside her, the one person in the room who knew her, not just the deal. Nervous, Priya asked. I've negotiated 8-figure contracts without breaking a sweat. That's not what I asked. Zara looked in the mirror. I don't know how I feel. I know how to protect myself if this goes wrong. I don't know what I'll do if it goes right. The wedding, 60 guests, a small hall outside Seoul, enough photographers to control the story. Zara's dress blended 2 cultures, her future mother-in-law noticed and gave nothing but a tight nod. Zara's father walked her down alone. You don't have to do this, he said. The deal survives without the wedding. I haven't changed my mind. Mostly true. The ceremony was brief and efficient. No tearful vows. 20 minutes, and the marriage that would save the Kang Group was legal. At the reception, Do-Yun approached her, smooth and unhurried. Remarkable how quickly you two found each other. Business moves fast when the terms are right, Zara said. Terms, a very practical way to describe a marriage. It's a very practical marriage. Something flickered behind his eyes. He left satisfied. He'd confirmed what he came to confirm. Sung-ho found her by the window. What did he want? To see if I'd flinch. I didn't. He looked at her a moment too long. Good. Hana Yoon, the woman his mother had spent years hoping he'd marry, found Zara later and wished them well without a trace of hostility. It was, somehow, more unsettling than if she'd been cold. Month 1 was logistics, separate wings, a shared calendar run by lawyers. It felt like a project, not a marriage. Zara buried herself in the merger, sitting in on board meetings, watching Sung-ho stay composed while Do-Yun tried to bait him. She recognized the discipline. It made her look at him differently. Sung-ho noticed things too. Black coffee, no sugar, awake before everyone, working by 6. A daily call to her father that always ended the same way, "I love you," fast, almost hidden. Kindness to the staff that wasn't performed. By week 3, he was arriving at the kitchen table early just to have coffee with her. Neither of them mentioned it. Their first fight had nothing to do with either company. His mother invited Hana Yoon's family to dinner without telling either of them. Zara found out from the housekeeper. "I'm not asking you to stop having dinners with people your mother likes," she said. "I'm asking why I found out from your housekeeper instead of you." He didn't deflect. He apologized outright, no excuses, no blaming his mother. He said he'd handle it himself. The dinner happened anyway. Canceling would have handed Do-yeon a story. But Sung-ho sat beside Zara, not at the head of the table beside his mother. When she raised Hana's family's shipping routes, he said flatly that the Kang Group's most valuable new partnership was already at the table. Week 5, Zara found a discrepancy in the Busan Fire's insurance filings and asked him directly. "You think your cousin burned down a warehouse," she said. "I think he spent 6 years positioning to inherit a company that isn't his," Sung-ho said. "A man like that doesn't need the company strong when he takes it. He just needs it to still exist." "Then we need to be careful what we hand him," Zara said. "He already tested me at the wedding." "What did he say?" "He asked if I'd flinch." Something almost like a smile. "You don't, I've noticed." At the household's winter solstice dinner, Zara sat with the staff instead of treating it as a formality, asking the housekeeper's daughter real questions, letting a 9-year-old badly teach her card tricks and pretending, completely, to be fooled. "You didn't have to do that," Sung-ho said later. "My father used to say the way someone treats a person who can't do anything for them tells you everything about who they are. I've never seen a reason to stop believing him." He didn't say anything else, but something in how he looked at her stayed with her for weeks. Week 8, a journalist, Yoona Beek, got an anonymous tip, later traced to Do-yeon's assistant, about the marriage's secret exit clause. If it ran before the board vote, it could hand the dissenting faction everything they needed. "He doesn't need to attack the company anymore," Min-jae said. "He just needs the marriage to look like a lie." 6 hours in Sung-ho's office, working the problem with 2 legal teams. Zara noticed something shift, not just the crisis management, but the two of them finishing each other's thoughts. They chose the direct option, an on-record joint interview. They confirmed the contract existed, explained the crisis that led to it, and Sung-ho added, unscripted, that whatever it started as 8 weeks in, it didn't feel simple anymore. Zara hadn't agreed to that. She hadn't expected it. Her composure held on camera. Her hand, out of frame, curled into her dress. The story ran softer than the original draft. Shareholder confidence held. The vote stayed on track. Do-yeon called that morning, rare for him, congratulating Sung-ho on selling the arrangement so convincingly. Sung-ho hung up without another word. The call confirmed what he already suspected. This wasn't a single attack. It was the opening move. That night, Zara found him on the terrace. "You didn't have to say that, about it not being simple anymore." "I know." "Was it true?" A long pause. "I don't lie in interviews." Neither of them pushed further. After the article, everything shifted quietly. No more avoiding each other's schedules. Dinners together most nights. Real conversations, her childhood in her father's office, his memories of a father who loved the company more easily than his children. She told him about the fiancé she'd left. He told her about running from the family name and ending up back inside it anyway. They stopped discussing the exit clause. It sat in a drawer, technically still binding, increasingly irrelevant. Her father visited Seoul and watched Sung-ho pull out her chair, a gesture Zara hadn't even noticed him making. Elijah recognized the look on his own face, the fear of watching something rare and easy to lose. Weeks earlier, Sung-ho had cleared a full day and taken her to Jeoje Island, a family guest house that had nothing to do with the company. They walked the coastline for hours. He told her about his father's sealed letter, the one admitting he'd never learned to say the things that mattered. Didn't offer easy comfort. She asked what he thought he'd say to his own kids and whether he'd manage to say it in time. He said he didn't know. She told him that being scared of it already put him ahead of his father. Neither of them mentioned the exit clause. It sat in both their minds the entire day anyway. That night, her father asked if the contract still mattered to her. It protects both companies if things go wrong. That's not what I asked. I don't know what I'd do if it ended and he wanted it to end too, she admitted. I've never once not known what I wanted out of a negotiation. I don't know what I want here. That scares me more than anything Do-Yun could do. Your mother used to say the best deals are the ones you can't fully control the outcome of, her father said. If you can predict the ending before it starts, it was never worth doing. Do-Yun didn't stop. He pivoted, sabotaging Adami Maritime's shipping contracts through a chain of subcontractors, subtle enough to be unprovable, damaging enough to matter. Elijah called Zara, tighter than she'd heard him in years. The same week, a board ally of Do-Yun's raised the delays publicly, suggesting the American alliance had introduced more risk than value. Zara didn't wait for Sung-ho to answer for her. She stood, laid out the exact chain of subcontractors and the individuals connected to them, and the timeline to fix it, without ever nomming the implication out loud. The room went quiet. Sung-ho watched her dismantle the attack without a word he could have improved on. That night, his careful composure cracked. He's going after your father's company because he can't touch mine anymore. Then we prove him wrong, together. 2 weeks of joint work, Sung-ho rerouting contracts through his own relationships, absorbing costs personally. Zara pressuring the subcontractors directly, offering 2 of the 3 a better deal to walk away. The third held out and gave Minjai's team the thread connecting the sabotage back toward Do-Yun's associate, not proof, but leverage. Then Zara did something reckless. She met Do-Yun alone at a tea house and told no one first. I don't need you to admit it, she told him. I need you to understand my legal team gets closer to a paper trail with your name on it every day this continues. Right now you can walk away quietly. In a month, you can't. You're very confident for someone who's known my cousin 4 months. I'm confident because I've read men like you my whole career. You don't want the company because you love it. You want it because inheriting it would prove something to people who have compared you to your cousin your whole life. That's not a strategy. That's a wound you're trying to heal with something that was never going to fix it. Something flickered, not anger, being seen too clearly. He recovered, warned her not to assume she understood a family she'd just married into. Within 72 hours, his associate cut ties with the subcontractor. Zara reported the resolution to the Adami Maritime Board without asking anyone's approval for how she'd handled it. An older board member told her, gruffly, that her mother would have done it exactly the same way. Elijah, watching his daughter and son-in-law work as one front from 4,000 miles away, told her he had no concerns left about the man she'd married. I have concerns about his cousin, he added, not about him. That night on the terrace, I need to ask you something, Sung-ho said. When the 6 months are over, what do you actually want to happen? The first time in her professional life, Zara didn't have a prepared answer. I don't know yet, but I know I don't want the contract deciding for us. He never mentioned the end date again. 5 weeks left. The board vote to ratify the merger was set for the following week. Do-Yun made his final move. A bribed paralegal in Priya's office, pressured over months, his family's small business back home quietly strangled, leaked the full contract, dissolution clause included. Do-Yun didn't need a lie. He went to swing board members with the truth. The marriage's own contract confirmed it ended in 5 weeks. Wouldn't it be prudent to delay the vote until the alliance proved permanent? Min, Jai's team caught the leak fast, unusual document access, a scared 23-year-old who broke down within 20 minutes of being confronted. $40,000, rooted through an intermediary, and threats to his family's business. Damning. Not enough alone to tie Do-Yun to it directly. If the vote is delayed past the contract's end date, Min-jae said, laying the timeline on the whiteboard at midnight, and the marriage dissolves before ratification, Do-Yun doesn't need scandal. He just points at an empty marriage certificate and asks the board why they'd trust a partnership built on a relationship its own architects didn't believe in. Every word of his plan was true. That's what made it dangerous. Zara went still, the stillness she brought to every crisis. There's one way to remove the leverage completely, make the marriage permanent, not a renegotiated term, actually permanent, before the vote. No exit clause, no argument. The room went quiet. Min-jae almost objected. This couldn't be strategy, it had to be real, then watched Sung-ho's face and said nothing. He sat with it, thought about his father's letter, still locked in the drawer. Thought about Geoj Island, 6 months of coffee at dawn, 6 months of clearing his evenings without ever nomming why. If I do this only to win the vote, he said finally, Do-Yun wins something worse than the company. He proves it was always just a spreadsheet dressed up as a marriage. I won't do that, even to save the deal. Then don't do it for the vote, Zara said quietly. I already told you why I'd say yes. It has nothing to do with him. Min-jae quietly left the room. I've known what I wanted for weeks, Zara said, her composure slipping. I just didn't know how to say it without it sounding like I was solving a business problem. I didn't want you to wonder which one was real. Sung-ho crossed to the drawer, pulled out the original contract, found page 6, and tore it clean down the middle. The marriage was supposed to end today, he said. I'm the one who couldn't let it end. Not for the board, not for Do-Yun. Somewhere in the last 5 months, I stopped thinking of you as the woman who saved my company and started thinking of you as the reason I wanted to keep building it at all. Zara took the torn pages from his hands. Ask me properly, she said, her voice unsteady. Not because of the board, because you want to. He looked down at the word, dissolved. Split clean in two. Thought about his father's letter, a man who never learned to say the thing that mattered while there was still time. He got down on one knee. No contract, no exit clause, no expiration date. She said yes before he finished the sentence. Do-Yun arrived early, confident, rehearsing the morning in his head. The murmurs once the board realized the contract had lapsed, the motion to delay, his own careful concern. He didn't know it was already over. Sung-ho opened the meeting before the agenda started. The marriage had been renewed permanently 3 days earlier. No exit clause, full disclosure of the original contract, copies already in every board member's hands. Do-Yun's face didn't show shock. He was too disciplined for that. Just the cold recognition of a plan quietly ceasing to exist. He tried once to redirect toward the shipping delays. Director O, his own former proxy, cut him off. The independent review already made further review redundant. The room's loyalty shifted for good. Merger passed unanimously, -1 abstention. Do-Yun was removed within the month, his accounts frozen. He left without a statement. Sung-ho watched from his office window and felt something closer to grief than triumph. The audit took 10 months. Diverted contracts, inflated fees, shell companies, and a payment to the same associate, the same fiscal quarter as the warehouse fire. Not enough for a criminal case. Enough for a civil suit, and enough to end every remaining tie between Do-Yun and the family for good. Those 10 months became their own quiet ritual, Zara bringing dinner to his office on the late nights. The two of them reading damning financial lines out loud to each other, with the exhausted humor of people who'd fought the same war together. Sung-ho's mother, learning the full extent of what her nephew had done, found Zara alone in the garden weeks later and asked, for the first time, about her mother. About Newark. It was the wall finally coming down. The real wedding came 8 months later, in a garden in Newark. No press. A guest list built around people who actually loved them. Zara wore her mother's ring, reset by Sung-ho without telling her. She couldn't speak for nearly a minute, something that had never happened to her in a negotiation or anywhere else. Elijah walked her down the aisle a second time and didn't ask if she wanted to change her mind. He told her, simply, that her mother would have loved this. The merged company, Adami Kang Global Logistics, became one of the largest privately held shipping networks connecting the Pacific and Atlantic corridors. Built, as every profile since has noted, on a foundation neither company could have built alone. They kept the torn contract, framed, beside the photo of the first cargo ship. Zara said it was there to remind them where they started. Sung-ho said, quietly, it was there because it was the moment he stopped protecting himself from needing anyone. The honeymoon, delayed a year by the audit, took them to Lagos and Cape Town. Zara showed Sung-ho the parts of her heritage he'd never seen. She cried that first night in Lagos, telling him it was the first time since her mother died that side of her family had felt present again. On their last evening, on a beach outside Cape Town, she told him in so many words for the first time that she loved him. Not the man who'd saved her father's shipping gaps. Not the man who'd torn a contract at 1 a.m. Just him. 4 years in, their daughter was born, Adiz Minseo. 2 years later, their son, Elijah Jaiho, born the same week the company completed its 300th route. When Adiz was 7, she found the torn contract on the wall and asked why anyone would keep something broken. Zara told her, sometimes the most important thing two people do is decide, on purpose, to stop protecting themselves from each other. Do-yeon resurfaced once, a small item about a mid-level advisory role at a minor logistics firm outside Incheon. Sung-ho read it, felt nothing, and put it down. When Zara asked if it bothered him that his cousin's downfall ended so quietly, he told her he'd stopped needing Do-yeon's story to end in spectacle the moment his own story stopped needing Do-yeon in it at all. Looking back, Zara would say the strangest part wasn't that a business deal became a real marriage. It was how ordinary the turning point felt from the inside. Not the torn contract, not on its own. 100 small mornings of coffee before either of them needed to be awake. A 9-year-old's bad card tricks. A man who apologized without qualifying it the first time he got something wrong. The torn contract was just the moment they finally said out loud what had already, quietly, become true. That's the story of a marriage built to save a company, almost destroyed by one man's ambition and made unbreakable by it instead. Tell me in the comments which part hit hardest, the terrace, the torn contract, or the proposal at 1 a.m.